communities, learning and teaching in diversities.
Hello, and good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, Deborah.
Good afternoon, Cherise, to another straight up conversation about education, a program that is sponsored by who?
The University of Aruba, creating opportunities for everyone in Aruba and abroad.
And if you're tuning in for the first time, my name is Deborah Alexander. I'm the coordinator for the Center for Lifelong Learning, and my other dynamic duo is Cherise.
Coordinator from the Office of Student Affairs and also marketing for the University of Aruba. And we are so happy to be here.
Yes, we are happy for those of you tuning in. We're happy for those of you looking at us live via Facebook. Thank you again for wanting to be part of this week's conversation, which we will be looking at career development, youth.
You know, what makes them think? What do they need? What do we have to do as a community? And most of all, how they make their decisions on moving forward.
All very interesting topics. But before we move on, anything we'd like to share this week? I don't know.
Well, you know, there were lots of interesting
Definitely.
information, you know, from America, the
Yes.
US, the Caribbean, you know, St. Vincent still being a bit of a worry. So, you know, our love and, you know, hope goes out to everyone who have family. And remember, when we are called upon, make sure that we all are there to help our colleagues in our Caribbean islands, our neighboring islands. So, yeah, well, at the University of Aruba, the May 15th is when we're going to start with registration for the new academic year, and it's all online.
And we're online, www.ua.aw. That's where you'll find information about Charisse and our upcoming registration.
Right. And what about CLL? What's up for Center for Lifelong? You've been doing a lot.
Oh, yeah,
lately.
we've been doing a lot. So I think I keep on repeating Risiko and good governance. So that's coming up. We have several fundamental trainings looking at balansanalyse, mortgages, hypotheken, pensioenen, which is actually almost sold out already. But if you still want to participate, there's always a waiting list. We have beleidsschrijven met impact, writing with an impact. So there's enough things going on at the university for you to go to our website. And for me, that's go to /forward lifelong learning, or you'll just see the tab. And you'll find out more information about what we're doing. We're now on LinkedIn as well. Again, you know, it was a bit dormant, but Cherise had so many things going on that she decided to pick this extra thing up. So there's no excuse for you not being informed about what the University of Aruba is doing in terms of educating the community and lifelong learning. So
Yes, and we all can become a lifelong learner. It
Yes.
doesn't matter your age, it doesn't matter your prior education. If you decide that you want to make a change and education is the way to go, do it today. Don't hesitate. Call us, send us an email, have a conversation. But having said that, Deborah, we always have very important guests. You know,
all our guests are important, but I have to say this guest we know for quite some years because
yes,
I think we all almost started at the same time at the university.
more or less, like, she's shaking.
She's
her,
shaking,
so let
she's
me bring her
laughing.
forward. So,
She
Deborah.
is no other than doctor. I was like, doctor. I was like, doctor. That is doctor. Sorry. Dr. Paula Kibbelar. Woot, woot. Kayla. She is being shy now at the moment. Paula, this is no time to shy. No, we have a very good and loving relationship with Paula. Paula will tell a bit more about herself, but Paula was the founding dean, an associate professor, also lecturer at the Faculty of Arts and Science when it was established, I think now 12 years ago almost.
2009, that's correct.
Yeah,
that's when
12.
we all started at
I just a bit later.
university.
So Paula with
Yeah.
us, we all formed the crew, and we're so happy to have her here. We've had many very interesting conversations with Paula throughout the years, and we're just here to hear about who she is, her educational trajectory, and also a recently conducted pilot research.
Yes.
So
Very important. So all of you, if you just joined in, this is straight up conversation about education, and we're going to be looking at career development, what keeps our youth worried, our parents worried,
Yeah.
and what we can do. So although we can take about 2 hours to really discuss the research in depth, she would just give us a slide or the most important
The thing.
information. So Deborah.
So let's start. For me, she is just Paula. So Paula, welcome. Good afternoon. As with every session, every conversation, tell us something about yourself that your friends and your family would say. This is Paula. Something that most of us don't know.
Yeah.
Oh my
and we
God.
know a
Yeah.
lot. But
So be careful.
yeah, I could name them up, but I wouldn't want you to
No,
blush.
no.
But tell us what something that is unique
I
that
should ask you guys. I mean, I realize now sitting here with you guys, and thank you again for this invitation. It's really impressive to be here, that we know each other from the start of the beginning of the Faculty of Arts and Sciences. And I really thought this week, almost 12 years in Aruba, and I mean, and now I'm sitting here with you guys. You know everything,
now we
almost
don't
everything
know
at the
everything.
university. No,
So tell us,
what can I
Paula.
say? What can I say? I was thinking about that, and I have a lot of different friends. So from their perspective, they will tell you or inform you all about the fragments of Paula. So that is going to be difficult or complex, but interesting.
Yes,
My
the
Dutch
fragments.
friends will say Paula is loyal, very sporty, very studious, nerdy, but very much interested in cultural aspects and doing a lot of things outside her study. In Curacao, my friends will say, well, she's very family oriented and she likes barbecues and beach parties and going
I
to
know
parties.
that.
So that's the other side.
Parties for sure not. So that's a different group
And
indeed.
the Aruban friends, after 12 years, they will definitely say, I think a combination of both of them. And I think that what all of them will say is I'm loyal and I am serious in my work. I am family oriented and I love discussions. I love talking. You should know that.
Yeah,
A little
definitely.
bit much, perhaps. And I love being with friends, so cooking and having a nice time with friends, going out, always a
Wow.
movie. And
So if we can wrap it up, she's very social, very dedicated.
Yes.
But like she said in there, so she likes research. She likes to have interesting, in-depth
Depth conversation. That's why she's here. That's why she's
a
here.
researcher,
So
yes.
then we move on, Paula, for people to really understand your route. That journey that you've taken to
Yeah.
be where you are to become Dr. Paula. You said it. There's friends in Curacao, and I'd like you to go into that. But tell us about your education trajectory. How did you
Yes.
end up at the University of Aruba?
oh, that's a
Let's
story.
keep it
That's
short though, because I know it's a long story, but
It
let's
is a
keep it
story.
short.
It is an adventure. Well, I'm from Curacao, as you know, and I was born there, but I grew up in the Netherlands, in Groningen and Nijmegen. So my youth is definitely Dutch. My parents went in the end of the 60s studying, so that's why my youth is primarily in the Netherlands. And then they moved back to Curacao in 81, and I finished my high school over there, Peter Stuyvesant College.
Oh,
And
nice.
after 3 years, I went back to Utrecht or to the Netherlands, and I started with the study anthropology, cultural anthropology. I had several studies that I was interested in, law, journalism, and political science. But then I wanted to know more about the region of the Latin American Caribbean after living 3 years in Curacao. And so I selected the University of Utrecht and cultural anthropology, Latin America and the Caribbean studies. I finished that with studying 1 year in Boston or Amherst, University of Massachusetts, and also a few months in Washington, D.C., Howard University. And my specialization was women's studies and ethnic studies. I finished that with a very well-known professor at that time, Dr. Philomena Essett. She is an authority on gender and ethnicity studies. She's now a professor in the States, and she actually invited me to do my PhD, but on gender in Curacao. That was her condition.
Very interesting.
So then
But Paula, if I may intercept just for a second, did you always know that you were always inquisitive as a young girl? I can hear you say that, but did you know off the top from like, this is my route, or are there anybody that influenced you? How did you get about those thoughts? It's because of your upbringing, your parents. What made you make the choice that you took, or the route that you took?
Yeah, well, it's a very good question, and definitely my parents who were academics. So I grew up in a milieu with studying was very important. My father did his PhD in Paris at the Sorbonne, so studying was that was my example. So I think that was a reason, or is a reason, but it is not. It's me, because my brother and sister
They chose not to. So that's okay.
So
that's
it's
okay.
Definitely.
Which is okay. And that brings us to, remember, Deborah, we talked about sometimes the pressure that you would have is like, oh, you're going into academics. Why are you not?
Yeah.
Definitely from me, I loved reading. I loved doing all kind of stuff around education. My mom is a teacher, so that is also it was also
that
important.
Makes it
But I do think that the fact that my parents traveled a lot in the kingdom, that also influenced me studying anthropology, which is the study of cultures. So I was very impacted by the fact that going back to Curacao, as someone from Curacao, I was really a Dutch, a Macamba. And so the clash with cultures was really something that I really wanted to investigate. And I fell in love with all the cultures that I saw at my high school in Peter Stuyvesant. And everybody was there from all over the world. And at a very small school, I was confronted with the worldliness of Curacao. Compared to the school I was attending in Nijmegen.
And I know
that is why I
Deborah.
think.
What?
No, because she said she was confronted with the worldliness in Curacao in comparison with Nijmegen. Because some people think you go abroad, dorpsgedrag, dorpsgedrag. And then they're like, here we are more exposed to different international cultures.
Yes, totally. And I think people underestimate that. That's why it's important that when we compare ourselves to, the Western world, as they will call themselves, that we don't underestimate our own power as Caribbean persons. I think we can understand and identify quicker with other cultures and be more empathic, to them, than they can be to us. So it's not always about, welfare in terms of money and, how they live, but I think having that internal knowledge and culture and norms and values is something that we definitely bring as Caribbean people. But I just want to touch base on with Paula on your research and culture. We're not going to go too in depth in that, but you looked at women in Curacao breaking the glass ceiling. And that was your PhD. That was much later. Okay. So let's, after you started with your PhD then, so that's with acid and then?
Masters, I was invited by my thesis supervisor, which was an authority at that time on gender and ethnicity, to continue with my studies as a PhD candidate at her faculty. And so she said, one condition is to do it in Curacao, which is your birth country. And I would like you to really investigate the experiences from a positive perspective on women on the labor market, on the Curacao labor market. And so I defined or formulated a research question on what the experiences were of tertiary educated women on the Curacao labor market, working in the governmental sector or in the private sector, regarding their possibilities, their barriers or obstacles, and of course, how they deal with them, their strategies. And that took like 125 interviews and, of course, the collaboration with the Central Bureau of Statistics from Curacao in order to really write the articles and the final dissertation.
So that's time is running out, and I know we can keep on asking, we could go into depth, so don't take us wrong for that. Now that we've known, I actually, another conversation, like to know the research that you've done then and how things have changed now, but unfortunately, can't go too in depth. But where can people find out about this research? If they is available online? Because I think if there's an online source, it's still nice to say that people can look into that.
Well, I'm still teaching some parts of my research, and it's still relevant. I'm still being invited to discuss it. Actually, as we speak at the Koninklijk Instituut of the Tropen in Amsterdam, there is a webinar on this topic. I have been invited to them, but then you invited me. And so it's still very, very interesting and current, obviously.
I think we need to invite Paul back to have this conversation. But I'm so interested now to know about
this conversation. So this is why Paula is also here, because you conducted another interesting study, which was recently launched and it was shared. And I think for those of you that missed it, it's in Exclusivo. You're even in Exclusivo. Focus, sorry for that. Tell us about that, because that's the reason why you're here, actually, to talk about this very interesting that is relevant to our upcoming youth. So
thank you so much. Yes, this is a report that we executed in collaboration with the VU, the Vrije Universiteit, or the Free University in Amsterdam, with my colleagues Dr. Annemarie Slotboom and Professor Katrien Bijleveld and Professor Jan Hendricks. We have been busy with this for the last 6 years, 5-6 years. And this is actually an attempt, the pilot of a youth monitor Aruba. For me, this is the first time that I executed a research on Aruba. So it's very important for me, and I'm very happy to talk about it right now with you because it's relevant. We know Aruba has been in shock the last 3 years because of the death of two very young boys.
Angels, yes.
And so this shock really influenced the policy of this current administration, which actually fell. But the whole social crisis plan came from that shock. And it's, for me as a social scientist, it is a very interesting momentum to be in Aruba, because for the first time, after 12 years, I saw that there was this concern, we cannot continue like this anymore. The economic development and tourism has been on the forefront for the Aruban development, and it's very important.
Economic,
but the social development perspective and framing is even more important now, as we see, because of COVID, but also because of the financial crisis. But I think that for Aruba to really be interested in how do we guarantee a sustainable, inclusive Aruba, which is actually one of the conditions for the coalition agreement, we have to look at the experiences of our youth. And we have to really ask them, how do they define happiness or their quality of life? And quality of life is the core definition of sustainability. So that is why I really think it's important.
No, it is definitely important. And I think these are one of the few times, and I'm really proud to know that you're doing that research in collaboration with some, but Deborah, I'm also hearing building bridges. I'm hearing health. I'm hearing education. I'm hearing economics, economic affairs. And I'm also hearing social affairs.
Oh,
so we
very
can
important.
see that there's also a bridge. And if you would see, we put up early childhood experiences which are shaped by families and community, influence future development and learning. So I assume it was not difficult to build that bridge and do such a large-scale research. And, we can't go into deep, but
taking into account the time, what were the main results from this?
It's very difficult for me to really summarize it, but I will try. Of course,
so this is a pilot.
This is a pilot. We would like to give it a follow-up for a youth monitor Aruba. We have, Cherise just mentioned it. Yesterday was a very important day in the United States with actually justice for
George Floyd.
So the Black Lives Matter movement has been very influential, but also our youth emancipatory movement.
Correct.
With the youngsters in the Black Lives Matter movement, but also Greta Thunberg for the climate change. So we see that people are getting much more aware and conscious about what is happening and what are the injustices they have to face, and they are tired of it. And in that sense, and from that framing, it's important to know that this is a pilot that we really would like to make a monitor. And that would mean then for this pilot, we selected 11 schools, primary education school.
So primary between the ages of just
the classes, the youth category was 5th and 6th graders from 11 primary education, primary schools all over Aruba.
So that's
then 3 school boards, the Catholic one, the governmental one, and the Protestant one, and 1 special ed school, SPO in Santa Cruz. And that would mean that 900, a small 1,000 students have been surveyed.
Oh, wow.
Not interviewed, but surveyed.
Okay.
And that part has been done by my colleagues at the VU in Amsterdam, because they are youth psychologists and psychiatrists. They know exactly why they wanted to select this particular youth category, because that is actually the 4 the voorportaal, you say in Dutch, before you get into adolescence. There you will see where the crux or the risk factors will manifest itself.
And
so between 10
graders,
and 13 years.
Fifth and sixth graders.
After 13 years, they're definitely in adolescence. And they actually already had the experience of formulating certain questions for this particular group that can be intimidated by being researched or investigated.
Okay, wow.
So you have to formulate the question in such a way that they feel comfortable in order to react and answer.
So,
and also their parents should, of course,
have to give
approve.
Yes. But I'm just wondering, because I know Deborah, we like everyone to remain a lifelong learner. Those of you who just tuned in, this is Straight Up Conversation about education, a program sponsored by the university, bringing education closer to home. Is there a link or anything, Paula, where we can, those who listening in and would like to know a bit more about the pilot research, where they can find
get a copy of this?
Yes, and get a copy of the first results
on the website of the Directie Onderwijs, Departamento Enseñanza. You will find the report.
Okay.
So it's online. It's for everybody. This is for the community.
So there's no excuse. It's free. So there's no excuse for not, going into it.
You can just find it. It is one of the reports that they have put on their website. And the 5 themes that we investigated, and that might be interesting also, that's of course, how do these youngsters feel about their family and the family unit they are in? It's very important, of course. The barrio that they grew up in or their school is in. About the language that they have to speak at the school, Papiamento or Dutch or English. And of course, their health, their well-being, but not only physical, but also mentally, mental health. And then last but not least, of course, the school. So I work for IPA. IPA's main assignment is, of course, primary school in Aruba. It's a huge assignment, and it's a very important assignment. I will always say, after 7 years working for IPA, this is one of the most important learning curves, and that is what you ask.
Yes.
As a daughter of a teacher and a father who was very much in education, that I understand that primary education is fundation de comunidad.
Hope you and
we do not really acknowledge that in order to really give everybody, and that is the crux of sustainability.
Oh, wow.
The cracks of sustainability.
You saw me looking at you like
of sustainability. Yes,
that is the decent life for everybody. Quality of life, which is the title of the report, is the QOL approach, and that is the core definition of sustainability. So we want for everybody a decent life.
So
in the future and now, and so that means that we have to start with our youth.
And I mean, again, encouraging everyone to go online to the website. Sharice put it on the website. I'm seeing some of the results, for example, questions that looked at, parental warmth, which I saw that, 77% said, very often they felt that, and that's not the way how.
It's very important, especially in particular for girls. We found out that, and that is, of course, the part of my VU colleagues, that the stable at-home situation is crucial for their development. Also for boys, of course, but boys will say that the barrio and the activities in the barrio will also have an impact on their development. But for girls in particular, the household should be stable and organized. It should not be some a unit that has a lot of conflicts of issues for their development. That is what the girls told us.
So there's really a difference in perception. And why is that?
And the gender perspective is herein very, very important, because this was an eye-opener for me, that boys and girls at that particular age already were able to actually distinguish what they need in order to be happy or in order to define.
And we underestimate that they know these things,
Do you see how Paul is explaining? And from one research, I'm already hearing her brains rattling from, but we also need to research the gender aspect.
Yes, that's research. Yes.
And and then when you started out first, Paula, you mentioned the economic well-being versus the quality of life. And why I'm underlying this, because so many parents, well, we say we have to work, we don't have to work,
Yeah.
leaving the kids at home, not because they want to, because they have to. What is want? What is have to? When we talk about quality of life, that
Yes.
alone, the definition, etc. But I know time is with us, but one of the conclusions you said is one of the factors with well-being and problem behaviors are different. Promoting well-being and reducing problem behavior need a different approach. Just, I know you can't answer right now, the pilot, it's still going on, but I'm sure you had different conversations. What would you say when we're talking about different approach? Could you just maybe highlight it shortly, because we're almost coming to the end of this conversation?
But I have to say two things. My colleague Annemarie Slotboom is a gender expert on youth, so she actually brought a gender perspective. I did not. Secondly, there is no versus economic and social perspective. They are integrated. It should be a holistic approach.
Yes.
You cannot separate both of them. So it's not that I would like to say that we have to separate a social development. No, in order for us to be sustainable, we have to integrate all the important aspects of being, of developing in a sound, sustainable way. Let me say that as a side. And then your last question on the
approach. Yeah, we have to go to the end. But just because I'm going to encourage everyone, please go to the website, because again, Deborah, every time when we have one of these radio programs, we get more information and we see people react. Those of you who are reacting on the comments, we will react to you in a bit, and the WhatsApp as well. So it is, we cannot discuss everything. We're happy that you're joining us, and read the report, and I'm sure Center for Lifelong Learning would come back with a Zoom webinar.
I'm looking at Paula, and I'm thinking, Paula, is there a way that we can organize something to inform?
I was thinking about it.
Yeah, you see, it has been a while since we've spoken as well, but let's go into stay pending. Yeah, let's stay pending, because this conversation deserves a follow-up via a webinar from Center for Lifelong Learning.
I just want, but one of the comments from Paula. Did you also consider doing this study in Curacao and the Best London?
Ooh.
That's just a question. I know, but it is very important, especially if we're talking about primary education. But back to just quickly,
I will do anything
give us
if people give me the means.
if anyone has the means, has its NWO, any fund out there that's able to support this project, then we'll make.
My colleagues in Amsterdam, and we are so happy with this result after 5 years working without really financial support, but a very good support at IPA and the University of the Free University, and of course the Ministers of Education. I have to thank them, but of course for the follow-up, it needs to be another level.
And is there anything else you would like to say? Just one final closing. Why this? What you want to take away from this research? So just for everyone listening in, if there's something you didn't touch base on that you just need to say now in a minute.
I did not know, or I'm realizing now how important it is to really ask the youngsters about their own experiences, and not the parents, not actually only the teachers, which we did interview the school teams, but it is very important to, if you have this research group, to ask them what makes you happy, what is actually defining your quality of life, whatever age you are. And that was something that was a learning curve for me. And another learning curve for me is I got to learn or to see Aruba in its core, the barrios, the schools. There it is happening. There is our future being made. And the teachers are doing such a phenomenal job.
Shout out to the teachers. Yes.
I was so impressed with their patience, and also with all the energy that they put, their love that they have for the job that they're doing. And this is something that we know. It is a cliche to really repeat it. But without them, we do not have our future citizen.
That is a mooi betoog. I find, and for anyone teachers listening in, I hope you really take it at core. We appreciate everything you do.
Yes, and again, it's been trying times
Yeah.
for everybody in education.
Yep.
It's not going to get any easier, but if we group together and we show the importance and we keep on doing our work well, we see that it is important how we form the basics of the very, very foundation of our community. So, Deborah, can you thank our speaker of today?
No, thank you very much, Paola. I think we'll need to link up soon, all of us. I want to know more about this research and to tell everyone I look forward to organizing something with you and the professors where we can share this to the community via a webinar. And it's not going to cost anyone anything. It's just a matter of logging in. So while we're preparing for our next guest, Cherise, you
Thank
entertain
so
and thank you,
much.
Paola.
Yes,
Thank you
thank
so
you,
much,
Paola.
Steph.
Thank
Thank you so much, Cherise.
you. Thank
Good to see
you.
you. Oh.
In your qualities, we believe you will achieve.
Yes, University of Aruba, straight up conversation about educational programs sponsored by the University of Aruba by Deborah Alexander, coordinator of Center for Lifelong Learning, and myself, Shari Sundeli, from the Office of Student Affairs and Marketing. It is our intention to bring education close to you and for you to stay connected to your dreams. So please, now we're going to, as we are preparing today, we're talking about the development of children, the career development. And having said that, we're going to introduce another speaker because we think it's important to learn more about who they are, what they do in our community, and the importance of bringing education closer to you.
What a global opportunity. Aruba University. Take back up
So
on
I'm
you.
back. For those of you who missed me that 1 second, I had to escort our previous guest, Paula, and we have another interesting guest who's not unknown to us neither, Cherise, is she? And I think to many persons who listen in on other channels, they would know and recognize this face.
And the voice.
And the voice. So let me just see if they can recognize, if anyone recognizes.
Yeah,
So,
before we put her up on the screen.
Bon tarde.
Bon dia.
Oh, bon dia. Oh, bon dia. Oh,
Bon
bon dia tarde.
Bon
Yeah.
dia.
So if you haven't recognized it, this is Carlien van der Linde, I have to say,
Yes.
Linden eigenlijk. And besides being a lecturer at the University of Aruba, which she will tell us a bit about, she hosts a very interesting show,
Yes.
which takes actually the previous topic from, listening to kids and their need into going into their careers. But that's not really the 100% what she's here for, but part of it as
but
well.
we do acknowledge that
We do.
she's a very active lecturer at the University of Aruba, and especially for the program, the Academic Foundation year.
Yes.
So I would like to commend her for that because you're from Caroline this and you're from Caroline that. I said, okay, we got you. I got you.
Yes.
So thank you for accepting our invitation and welcome to Straight Up Conversation about Education.
Bon tarde,
Bon
Caroline.
tarde. Hi,
You-
Charisse. Hi, Deborah. Bon tarde.
Bon
Thank
tarde.
you for having me. I'm very happy to be here. And yes, let's start.
And as I've said, it's a conversation,
There you
There's
go.
no
There
quiz
you go.
questions, but I think it's always nice when people have an idea, of who you are, what you do. But, let's start again with, what your friends, family, partners say about you. Who is
Yes.
Caroline?
Yes.
I think that's a very interesting question. I think my friends and family, my partner, and also friends would say that I'm a very active person. I'm always doing something, always working on a new project, always moving, always being engaged in something.
Sounds like
new.
Cherise.
Yeah. So I think they'll say I'm very active. She's always busy.
Yeah.
And always, very determined, very committed, and
Yes.
working towards. I think they will also say I'm a bit of an overachiever. Some of them would say that.
I think it fits with the generation.
Right.
I think it fits with the
I think
generation.
we should come back for her to explain, when we're talking about career development, generation X, Y,
And
Z,
Z,
yes.
So
So
we're good. But before that, what about your education trajectory? Where
Yes.
did you come from? Where did you start? What is your trajectory?
Yes. So upon graduating, so I went to school here in Aruba,
Mhm.
Colegio Arubano. Upon graduating from the VWO, I had a bit of a struggle in the beginning. I wasn't sure
Ah,
what to do next. I was always a very good student, very focused on completing my high school at that time, VWO.
Mhm.
So after graduation, I took a year off. I worked a little bit. And then I realized that I wanted to apply to a school in the United States. At that time, it's a school in Atlanta, the University of Oglethorpe. It's a liberal arts college.
Nice.
And I got in, and I wanted to study psychology, but I think I had the freedom to choose different courses there. So I followed many business courses, and I realized I like that. But then after a year, I transferred to the University of Curacao, back then UNA, University of the Netherlands Antilles, where I completed my bachelor in business administration. And then I went for my master's at the University of Tilburg, a master's in strategic management. And afterwards, I stayed at the University of Tilburg to complete my research master in strategy and organization.
So strategic thinking is really your thing. And that's from someone who was thinking psychology
Yeah.
to strategy.
Yeah, I know.
What?
But before Rizzo, because she was like very quick in saying, because she's very precise, and
Yes.
we're very precise listeners.
Yes.
You said you didn't know what you wanted to do, and I would like you to just explain, because we see so many students struggle, and you work with the academic foundation here, so I think you know better than anybody. What helped you? What did you do? And what do we offer? Because it's not about the academic foundation, it's more about you, but I'm sure that students have the same struggles you had. What were your struggles, and how did you deal with them?
Yeah, so that was when I was 18 years old, so a couple of years ago.
You're a millennial, so it's not that far. It's not that far ago.
But I see the same struggles our students are facing today. Most of the time, I think we're very, very focused on completing our academic career successfully, getting that diploma, graduating, and all of that. And we forget a very important aspect, which is career planning. And I think career planning starts at a very early age. And we don't really realize that. And I see the same thing. Some of my struggles was I was very focused on, completing that degree, on graduating successfully. And I think some of our students are facing that same reality. They want to graduate, they want to complete their HAVO, their VWO, their APE, and then they come to a point and realize, okay, so what's next? And I think that's where we need to support them a little bit more in their decision making.
And I'm just thinking about Paula, that she says, a lot of the times our youth, our youngsters are not asked what they really want to do.
Yeah.
So that's also one part. Sometimes not knowing, but I can imagine that some students you've encountered know what they want to do, but due to peer pressure, family, they make a choice to please someone else.
Also, I think this is kind of funny because on Career IQ, we had a guest a couple of weeks ago. His name is Chris Cross. He's a musician, very determined.
He was on a show,
And afterwards, I had a conversation with another person my age, a millennial, and he was like, I think coming from our generation, we're very focused on the school, being good students, being academically strong. But sometimes they do know what they want to do. Like, for instance, this person said, yes, I always wanted to go into arts, but that wasn't really something we applaud. Yes. And I think that's a cultural aspect that many students also need to deal with.
I would like to touch base into, because we talked about your education trajectory.
Yes.
We did not go into your career development. I don't know if you'd like to, because I have a question. Just tell us a bit in short about, your career development for those listening in.
Okay, very short. Upon graduating, that's in 2013, I came back to Aruba and I started to work at, back then, PwC in the business advisory service. Thereafter,
PricewaterhouseCoopers.
yes,
accounting.
It was the business advisory lines of services. Now it's Grant Thornton, correct? Then I worked there. That was a very nice experience. I quickly noticed that there's a big gap between the academic world and also the working world.
She's being careful, but it's okay. We all know that gap exists. We know that gap exists.
Yes. So thereafter, I went to the Centrale Bank for a year, and then and then I ended up at the Aruba Tourism in the research department. Yes. And now at the university.
Accounting, research, tourism.
Yeah.
University.
Afi. It's I'm trying to connect the dots, but I can say I met Caroline when you recently just came down, because PwC and Center for Lifelong Learning collaborated, and I have seen her growth through these past few years that you've been back, and it's like, is this really typical millennial? Not as in a bad way, but oh my God, she's there again. Oh, Carolina, about that? I was like,
Right.
this is millennials. They know what they want. That's our perception then. They know what they want and they go for it. And if once you've either that need has been met or not met, you look on to the next. Is it really a millennial thing? Because we're talking about generation X, which is I am. Then there's the Y, which is the millennial.
So let's look at it a bit, but understanding
Yeah.
career development and career choices with the generation
Mhm,
X, Y,
mhm.
Z, and the millennials.
Yeah,
Explain
millennials
that
is
a
what.
bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you-
Okay. I think I'm not sure if it's a millennial thing. Maybe it's more of a personal thing. I know I have more friends that are more open
Yeah.
towards joining or going after those new endeavors.
Yeah.
Some of
Mhm.
them are a little bit more safe. I think for me personally, it has to do with the fact that you always want to make sure that you're fulfilled in the career that you are doing. And upon graduating, I think for me, school was very easy. Going at the university, you have a secure path, you follow your courses, for me, I was a very lucky student. It was easy. I know some students struggled. And I think my struggles started upon entering the working world, where you don't have that structure and it's like a corporate jungle. And you
That's a
need
nice
to
way.
you need to figure things out, and then it goes back to the career planning, your career visions. What do you like? Then it becomes apparent that it's not only the academic skills that matter, but also the soft skills that are important. And I think
Oh,
there is where we have work to do.
Yeah, well, they say it's not soft skills, it's human skills.
yes.
Skills that we tend to forget and look at it's more a gender quality, but it's about
Yes.
human skills because we all need
Mm.
them. But it is so exciting one way to learn from we taught and the millennials, the generations that
Yeah,
they
the boomers,
know,
yes.
right? They know
Of-
exactly, and they don't have any problem with being hesitant about their decision making. But then we see that's not the case.
No, I don't think it's not that they're not extremely certain all of the time. I think it has to
Mhm.
do with the fact that they perhaps dare to take the risk. Some people don't, and that's also fine. But it has to do with the supports that we have nowadays. I think the older generation had a harder upbringing, more structure. Maybe you have to follow
Yeah.
certain rules. Whereas
a community
Yes,
network, perhaps,
exactly.
yeah.
Whereas we have a little bit more freedom. I think we're
Yeah.
blessed there. There are also many tools for personal development and personal growth. I think the new generation, so I call them the new generation, the Gen Z, I think they're at a great point in time because they have more support, more development tools, more ideas we just need to use them in order to nurture them.
And that's the generation as well that we're talking about with Paula, right? So the
Yeah.
upcoming that already know. It's just we have to trust that
They know.
that they know, and we have to
Yes.
trust that. And sometimes it's a bit hard for the baby boomers. I think
Yeah.
which is Cherise and I.
My parents are baby boomers, so you can imagine whenever all of my changes, it was, are you changing again?
You know,
But
and
they have
also-
always been very supportive.
And that's the important thing because we as a community tend to judge. And I didn't ask you to put you on the spot, but I
That's
just
fine.
put it for people to think when you see Caroline out there at Career IQ and she does a
Yes.
wonderful job. And
Yes,
when you see
with
her as a
colleagues.
lecturer at the university doing a wonderful job with her students,
Yeah.
she also have had her moments of stop, think, unlearn, decide to be able to get where she is. And there's nothing wrong in having that. And I think that's really the focus. We need not to judge people by the choices
Correct.
they've made. It's so
Exactly.
long they end up where they need to end up and are happy.
Right.
And
And, having mentioned that, this in real life, people often make choices out of habit and tradition, small islands, without going through the decision making steps systematically. Now, I know one of the things that the Academic Foundation year, you can learn all about that study 1 year study program at www.ua.aw. The decision making framework is important, and parents, community, and the person involved themselves play an important role. Now, because I know you're all about career development, could you maybe just touch a bit in depth? Is that okay if I take a sidestep in looking at career and looking at decision making? Because I often find students is like, yeah, but me as a woman, siguro.
And not only
Minot
students.
siguro.
Last week I was buying Johnny Cake and someone was like, I don't know what I want to do, I just want to follow something. I don't know.
And they were already
They're older, working,
Right.
So I'm like, Really?
Yeah.
But
So you see, sometimes we end up doing something or we're
yes,
not sure. We got stuck there, and then thank God for Center for Lifelong Learning.
we're doing our best.
Yeah, giving different
Enabling growth.
opportunities, right? Enabling growth within the community, and also the many private sector, but also the Board of Education or Department of Education also is doing a lot different. So let's go back to Caroline. When we talk about the decision making process, how does that go? What could you, could you give us a bit in depth information on that, and then linking that to the career development?
The decision making to pursue a career
Yeah.
of a
Mhm.
person.
Yes.
I think that's a very difficult question, but a very personal question. I think for everyone it's different.
Mhm.
But if I go back to Career IQ and I give a quick summary of all of the interviews that we've done and what we have learned from our guests, is that it all starts with your passion and what you
Mhm.
want to do. And most importantly, it's not only your passion, it's your contribution to the community. It's building the community that you want to see and pursuing that career that will help you achieve that goal. Now, that's not it's not an easy process, because sometimes it's very difficult to identify your passion. And maybe once you have identified it, you feel that you're a bit stuck financially, especially as you get older. You have some responsibilities that you need to adhere to. So it's not something that's very easy, but I think it goes back to having that vision. Where do you want to end up? What's the community you want? How do you want to serve your community, especially a small island community in which we're living in? And then connect to, okay, so what are the steps that I need to take in order to achieve that goal? So I would, if I see a student at the university that's kind of struggling with, okay, so what's my next steps? I think it would go back to, okay, so how would you like to serve? I know that sounds a bit cliche.
It
But
does not. I
it
think we need
starts
to
there.
focus again.
I was gonna say it's beautiful. Think
Yeah.
on how you want to be of added value to community. You said
Right,
that was like,
just-
oh, that's indeed what I'm doing. You try to be in a
Right.
different way. So
Yes.
thank you for elaborating on that.
Yeah. So when you say you want to, link their passion to their community, and then their passion, they're like, yeah, but passion, yeah, but I need to make money as well. I
Exactly.
mean, let's be honest. That's
Yeah,
the next
yeah.
step. We go for your vrouw. But the telephone, I need
We
to
can go
have it.
pagir.
And I
Kasi
need to have
pag-ipanya,
it.
auto, gasoline, comida.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Ministere iPhone.
Right, right. So and it's not that I think the whole economy, the world
Yep.
changes our view or changes us of listening to their inner voice.
Mhm.
What are you doing? And again, also tapping into the academic foundation you're on, tapping into their passion. How do you go about it? Because I think sometimes they know, but they're like, no, mi mama bisam, tata bisam, jolly brami. Mi baya si say pro mi. How do you deal with that? And what would you say to those youngsters?
It starts with having a quiet place. I think it starts with asking yourself the hard questions and also being very honest. It starts with saying, okay, so what is it? What do I want to contribute? What's my legacy? What is the aspect that I want to leave behind? What are the actions? What are the differences that I want to make? Who am I as an individual? I think it would also go back to trying many things. It doesn't hurt to follow different internships, volunteer,
Good
join service clubs, because then you connect with different people. I think that would be step number 2. Try
Yeah.
to put yourself out there, and also start new projects. And then the third step would be start exploring. So most of the time, if you're not very sure what's your passion, the passion is something that comes from the inside. So that is
Yes.
something that it has to do with the impact and the difference that you want to make. And I know it's fair. Sometimes you don't get a clear-cut answer. Some people have that,
totally,
but
totally.
we're
Deborah,
not all.
share, Deborah. I could just see her like that.
No,
Is
this
so
is not my.
true.
No, it's true. It's true. Sure, yeah.
So
Continue. It's not about me.
it's not a clear-cut answer, but
Yeah.
then the next step, I would say, start volunteering, start connecting with people, start starting new projects, and number 3, just start doing. Because in doing, you will learn, you will realize what work and what doesn't work, and how you can adapt and move forward.
And I've said it many times. Failure is also part of that.
Yes, and
You
we need to
know?
become comfortable with failure.
Yes.
It's not really failure, it's
it's
a
learning
learning.
moment.
It's a
Learning
learning
moment,
experience.
learning
But
Yes.
how is Generation Z, that's the youths of today, how are they dealing with failure? Because before, I remember, baby boomer, that it would be like, oh, you really feel like a failure. And, I'm
The
really
shame.
thankful, right, that I had a good support. So I would go like, hey, just get up, try it again. So I'm from a generation where, my family, my mom, my aunt, everybody around me, my neighbors would go like, geef niet doorgaan. Try again. Just keep trying. It's okay. A trial is better than failure. But I feel sometimes that the youth, they really go like, oh my gosh, I'm a complete failure. How is Generation Z dealing with that? How do millennials deal with that? And what are we doing to really make them feel at ease and understand that failure is okay?
I think the millennials, I think the Gen Z and the millennials have a harder time dealing with failure. I think for us, it's a bit, it's frowned upon. You're changing again, you're doing something new again, you're starting a new venture again. And then the Gen Z, I think they're a little bit more open towards
like-
failure. I see my students, some of them are very in tune to what they want in life, and some of them are, no, we're just exploring, and it's okay if I don't finish the academic foundation year. I see that sometimes they just they come for the personal development, and then they skip the academic courses. Whereas
Which
my
is okay.
generation would be very much focused on the academic courses and not much on
Wow.
the personal development.
And that's millennium, and that's not so
Totally.
far from the Generation Z, because
Yeah, I
she's
think,
young,
yes.
So
Yeah.
you can see the switch. Do you think of all the developments, or what are key aspects that you think that played a role? Because I mean, it's like, okay, as a parent, how would you tap in and kind of guide them? I think it's
it's
And you as a
difficult.
parent have to be able to be aware of those skills as well to guide them. Because we can make the assumption every parent can guide their kid
Right.
in
Of course.
making the right decision. So
Yeah.
that's also something not to take for granted.
It would go back to all of the resources that we have today. Nowadays, we have a lot of personal development, career development resources locally, and like the Lifelong Learning Center, the different trainings. I think it starts there because we have access to so many new information, many research, new development, new learnings. That makes it a little bit easier for parents to use these resources in order to guide their kids. There are a lot of resources out there that back in the days were just not available.
Yeah.
And then back then you will follow what the school or the university is saying because they are the expert.
Yeah.
But now you have a magical word, which is Google, and you are sort of building your own curriculum because you have the opportunity and choices to do that.
And still with that, I do believe that we don't take advantage of that free curriculum. I've said it many times. I was telling my best friend this morning as well. We're talking about health. And I said, in retrospect, there was no Google back then, but now you can look for anything and you can counter, say, okay, well, this thing said this, and there's 10 of them saying this, and there's 8 saying this, and there's a gray area where there's an overlap, and you try to hold on to that overlap, that this is at least the truth. And I think it's the same, in science. So, but no one does that because sometimes I guess we're just kind of lazy. I don't know. Do we even know what it is or how to look for research or research on, getting data?
Or we're just accustomed that it's done for us as
Good
opposed to
point.
being
Or
a little bit
overwhelmed.
more
Overwhelmed.
take more ownership of our own
I think that's a
career.
good one. Taking ownership of our future, your own career. Because when you fail, it's too fail. When you have learning moments, it's sometimes too easy to point the finger at Carolina Dunamimala.
See, of nano bisa lo cual dang misrahasi. Because I would say if it's not what I expected, and then I say, okay, but what did you do differently to meet your own expectation? I was like, well,
we don't like to be challenged. We don't like to be.
Yes, and that is one thing again. What I love about the academic foundation, the lecturers really challenge their students because it's not one answer. And I would encourage all of you, if you're not sure, before you step in that plane, just check out our website www.ua.aw and see what we can offer. One thing I can tell you, the academic foundation year year fills up very
Just gonna say that,
quickly.
Charisse, we started, I remember back then with 21, wasn't it? The first year.
Yeah.
Then it increased.
Yeah.
How many students do we have now at the academy?
Currently, we have 100 students actively
Yeah.
in the program,
And
which
on,
is
Wow.
the largest
right.
cohort.
Right.
Yes.
And usually we don't have a numerous fixes, so we don't stop, but we do stop at 150. Yes, we have to, because they
It's on
can
it.
do so
Yes.
more and no more. And,
Yes.
usually on May 14, that's the first program. May 14, 12
Register,
noon.
register,
And
register. Yeah.
everything is online. But let us encourage the youth and parents. Read about the different opportunities that we can offer you, and look. And if you have questions, ask them. Hook up with them. We have our different emails address. We have our website. You can ask your questions, and as you can see, Curly, she did many things before this. So there is a
Yes.
lot of information that she can share with you.
So don't be scared by her
Yeah.
academic background. Be inspired by her career IQ, I would say.
Yes.
And on that note, I see our upcoming young Poots just entered the
Yes.
doors. He's like, these ladies are taking over my show. So, let me make sure and finish on time. But in order to do that, Caroline, is there one last thing that you would like to
Yes.
share with those listening in, looking with us on Facebook regarding who you are and your message in terms of academic foundation year, anything?
Well, thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for having me today. It's been a very fun conversation, speaking about career development and career choices in Aruba. Of course, starting with the education. I think I would go back if I have one advice to leave to all of them, all of the
Mhm.
people listening today, and also students. It would be to start that you need to take ownership of your career. Everything starts with
Yes.
you.
Yes.
And there are many resources out there. You just need to be open to learning, to exploring, to start doing. And there's no straight line to success. There's no
All
one
right.
common path. It's a trial and error, and just be open to it and enjoy the ride.
I could not have said it better. And I just want to thank
Yes.
Paula and Caroline for that input, that we can see our youngsters. Some of them know what they want, and they should just embrace that. And for those of you who don't know us yet, you will eventually find out. But look, be driven, by your purpose. What is it that gives you excitement? And once you just follow those stones and you pick up the knowledge along the way, your backpack will be filled with lots of lifelong learning experiences and moments. So,
Thank
having
you.
said that,
And
Charisse,
also
thank
that it's never too old to stop
You're
learning.
right.
never too old,
You're
never too old.
CLL, enabling growth in our community.
And personal
Now,
enrichment. I always add as personal
yes.
enrichment to that as well.
Right. So thank you so much, our Facebook listeners. Thank you for those comments, and also those sending us WhatsApp. We're really happy that you're enjoying this program and that you find it's very informative. So those of you on Facebook, we're going to say bye-bye. There's a new Massive 103. You still got to enjoy our music. So thank you so much. And remember, next week, it's going to be a different shade. It's going to be about life and law. Life is
Ooh,
law.
yeah, life is law. Not law and order, definitely not. But there's a
no.
lot of law in it.
In life in general.
Yes, so
Rather,
I
we
would
like it
say
in that.
stay tuned for next week's guest. It's going to be a really fun conversation. I predict that already. So thank you very much, and look forward to seeing you next week via Facebook, and for you listening in via Massive 103.5 FM.
Bye bye.
We believe you will achieve.